Please take your seats. Come on, Kevin, we're going to put you to work. How about giving us the 30-second thing on stage 1, stage 2? What's the difference?
So stage 1 plan is more generic. When you get into stage 2, it has more details. We talked, in my report, I talked about details of landscaping and more details of utilities, where specifically they're located. It's ultimately just more detail, is ultimately the stage 2 development plan.
Stage 2 gives Kevin what he needs, the bones to enforce the building permits. All right, I said we'll talk about traffic. I think first we're going to learn a lot about traffic. We heard basically there's no red flags on from the traffic count. They're always confusing. I've heard a lot of them over time. But they have rules, regulations, and calculations, and they come up with a number. And so that's what I'm holding my thoughts on traffic. I mean, traffic, as we all know, the worst in school starting, school ending for 10 minutes. All right. I'll open up the commission. I'd like their thoughts on, we heard a lot about the mass of this development, the general design of it, the design review board comments. Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I'd kind of like to say a few things right off the bat. The question was about the zoning ordinance and our ability to change it. We can't change the zoning ordinance. The CBD zone, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin or Jan, that's the only one that there's some latitude in because CBDs are just kind of a strange animal. All the other zones have specific parking requirements and setback requirements and all that sort of thing. We can't just do things frivolously, but the CBD zone is different and does give us some latitude in that. What else? Oh, the stage 1 and stage 2 development plan. The stage 1 plan, we approve conditions or deny, but that's final. It doesn't go to council, correct, Jan? Okay, so this is, and the stage 2 plan is reviewed by the staff. So there is no public hearing. So this is important. Third thing I'd like to say is if this is a done deal, why am I so conflicted about this? Really, you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't believe your voices meant anything, because you would just stay. So I won't say I'm insulted because I know how social media is, but I'm really conflicted here. The first plan we saw I thought was way too big. This plan I think is too big. And I think one of the reasons I feel that way is based on Kevin's comments about parking. 40 places have been provided, but 60 are required. I think that tells you it's still too big. I think if the parking provided was within what was required normally in the zoning ordinance, we'd probably have the right size development here. I think it's still too much building for the site that we have. I can't argue with the Woodland people and the comprehensive plan. The whole development really needs to be screened from Woodland, and we shouldn't have traffic on Woodland. Woodland is a small minor street that holds, I don't know what you said, 25 houses? It was designed for 25 houses. I don't think we should be dumping any more traffic on Woodland, and I'd have a tough time supporting that. So I really think it needs to be downsized one more time, and the traffic all needs to be taken off of Woodland and put on the avenue. I think it can be a great plan, and maybe the developer can't make money at it if it's downsized again. I mean, that's not really our concern. Our concern is to try and get the right project here. I think it's still too much project for the site that we have.
I would be, I think I think it's important to note that I know there was several comments about the fact that, you know, with the 18 residential units and you assume 2 vehicles per residential unit, that essentially you're more or less doubling the amount of traffic on Woodland. And that's not necessarily the case. The residential trips that come from a typical single-family home with similar to the ones that are on Woodland Place, if you follow the Institute of Traffic Engineers, the ITE Institute, that's the basis the traffic engineers use to try to develop their traffic. Those trips can range for a typical single-family house almost up to 10 to 12 trips per day. And typically, a lot of those are associated with trips to school, trips to the daycare, trips to the grocery. When you have a family, especially with younger children, you're going to have significantly more trips than you would with an older resident. That being said, and I think this was repeated several times, we can't guarantee who the residents of these condominiums are going to be. But in all likelihood, the ratio of trips between the existing residents and the new condominiums is not going to be a 50-50 proposition. I just want everybody to understand that. Secondly, there was not a traffic count taken on Woodland Place for this development to gauge what the existing number of trips are on Woodland Place. So that number is probably significantly higher than what would come out of the garage. But again, everything that was done for this study by the developer and is in accordance with the city regulations for a traffic engineering study. The consultant that did the work did it in accordance with the standard care of professional practice. So everything that was done thus far for this study meets that criteria. I just want everybody to understand that. There are obviously concerns about parking, there's concerns about the driveway placement, there's concerns about the screening. The other thing to consider with the traffic as well is we're looking at the net difference between the traffic that was coming from Scott Grocer's building on the Woodland Place versus the amount of traffic that would come from the condominium. So also keep that in mind as well.
Anybody else on the size mass type of thing? Just personal comment, I think it was great that we got the height down to 50 feet. Did we, how high, Rick, is the bank? Remember we talked about that? Do you remember the height of the bank? Just for reference.
So here's the new West Banco branded bank next to the tower, the clock tower. And here's the height of the new commercial restaurant building across the street from it, right here, that line. And then the mass of the building that we're building lines up with the top of that bank. And then the gables that you see on those front elevations are above that. So the main mass of this structure lines up with the main mass of this building, and the streetscape, we told you about how many feet are between here and here. It's 21 feet, which is more than exists now because it's a hillside. You got a sidewalk and a hillside. So again, this is all grade, so handicap accessibility, et cetera. This creates the whole streetscape that'll complement what's going on across the street. And then as far as the berm I talked to you about earlier, this is a berm that'll be built up with dirt, so the headlights from these cars in this parking lot will never be going through bushes. They'll be hitting ground. And here's the famous removal of honeysuckle.
Thank you. I got thoughts on the parking lot flow. Another question, Rick, I think.
One of the questions I had, I guess the designated loading zone or commercial loading for the commercial space from the rear parking lot is at the residential drop-off loop. Is that correct?
There's really three kinds of loading. This loading here would be for the FedEx guys that are delivering Amazon boxes and all kinds of stuff to the residents. And also some of the, let's say Jennifer signs a lease, the framing supplies that would go into the gallery space right here. So this would be light trucks that could park, not be in the way of the circulation of the cars who are looking for a parking space. Then when it comes to food delivery to the restaurant, that happens early in the morning, so there'd be a zone, no loading hour for the deliveries that would go into the restaurant out here. It also might have some signage about valet parking at night. So this is going to be a flexible area that might be used for all kinds of loading of people and loading of goods. And then these will hopefully have meters because we don't want someone hanging out all day taking space on the street. And that's going to be something new. I don't know if that's a good idea, but there's going to be some ways to make sure that these spaces turn over. And I don't know if it's parking meters or signage or what. I don't know. We haven't got that far along, but it'll have to be worked out before we go to phase 2. And again, to address the gentleman's concern that lives here, we certainly don't want tractor trailers, campers, all that stuff will be in condo docks that prevent people from doing that kind of stuff. Because again, I'm trying to sell these condos, and that'll be regulated.
Do you anticipate, you had mentioned the valet parking, do you anticipate restricting a portion of the commercial lot for valet operations only?
No, I think you'll want to use it here because they'll zip over to US Bank or Guardian or behind in Norman's property or behind City Hall. There's all kinds of space for parking in the CBD, and that's what the city's committed to do, is do a study on where the spaces are, what hours are they available, how many, so we can begin to identify where employees park. If employees are 500 feet away from the 30 spaces the city own here, that'd be a great solution. If the valet is easy to get in and out of, to get these cars back here, that would be figured out as well as a part of that study.
Ron, have you been formally approached with a request to conduct that study yet?
Yeah, we've been in discussion, not necessarily with this development, but through the process of updating our comprehensive plan, looking forward into what lies ahead with our implementation. We have started a process that we'll be looking at all of our public parking spaces, what the city owns, what's available that is current, and what might be available within all of our business district areas. So not just this area. I think it was a reference to the Midway district and the parking. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. You've heard references to shared parking. Obviously, those take agreements. For example, in the Midway, we are currently in discussions with the VA regarding some of the parking that they use that belongs to the city and vice versa. The same type of study is being done or initiated here in this central business.
Ron, before you leave, we had some comments on, how long are these businesses going to be open at night? Is there any restriction?
As far as what hours are set?
Hours, yes.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends on the use, but we don't have a restriction on hours of operation per se. I don't know that most cities do. I mean, there's liquor license laws, but beyond that, it's really up to the individual business owner what hours of operation they have.
Our pub district is, what, midnight? I don't know.
No, it would be longer. Yeah, I mean, but there's businesses in Midway that are open till 2:30. And that's not uncommon at all. I mean, I think that mirrors, what a liquor license is, if that's part of their business.
additional comments on the trash pickup. The design was made to accommodate.
I was just curious, how is the trash pickup, the commercial trash pickup from Scott Grocer's building handled today?
I can tell you, I live across the street. They have cans like I do, and they take it to the street right in front of me.
So they do not have a commercial dumpster there?
Two garbage truck that comes down and backwards down the street.
I was more interested in what you thought about the concept of what they back up and load full 500-pound dumpster out. Is that workable?
I can clarify the
I
trash.
guess it is, because Rumpke's giving you a letter that says that's okay, right?
Yeah, I had Rumpke come out to the site. One thing people don't understand, that this garage is 2 feet lower than Woodland. In order to keep this garage underground so you don't see it from the street and make sure all these businesses are handicapped accessible, the garage actually is, 2 feet lower. So the elevation change is accomplished by the 20 feet from the face of the garage to the sidewalk. So that grade change is not severe because you're going 20 feet up in a 2-foot elevation. So the cars can stop before the sidewalk. So if their kids going to school, they'll wait in this zone between the garage and the sidewalk. That was one of the requests of the neighbors, to make sure that people could look both ways, not just for the street, but for the sidewalk. And the reason why, again, Rumpke doesn't think this plan was feasible to come out here with the trash is because not only do you have to go 2 feet up in a short distance to here, but then you have to deal with the elevation change on the hill with a 500-pound dumpster. So you can't control that kind of monster on that kind of slope. And this also is not covered like this is. So if it's snowy or slippery, this has no problem. You can just roll it up to the edge of the truck and lift it up and go. Where here, you have environmental hazards as well to deal with. So I can't move the garage elevation to make the rest of this happen. And the idea of having the actual garage exit here, you're moving the problem just 2 doors down. It's the same direct access to the street that this is. It just gets moved down. And this is 3 turns into here. And the truck can't make this snake turn either. It's too, for a truck that size, it's too difficult. So that's why we designed this so he can pull in, back up, do his business and get out and not be in the way of any residential traffic.
Where's the commercial trash?
Right.
Is it all right? Is Rumpke getting all the trash? Or
No, so this is the commercial trash. This is the residential trash room in the garage here, and then the commercial trash is here. So they'll have to come in this drive and unload that. And that'll be fenced and screened.
Any comments, gentlemen, on the screening down to 25 feet instead of 50 feet? So we're allowed to do that.
berm that helps with that problem. Because,
Can we go back to the tractor for a second?
sure.
If the issue about moving the garage access is slowing people down, I guess, coming in and out of the garage, and Rumpke can't get their truck to make the 3-point turn or the 3 turns, but they've got to come in the other side to get in that far right-hand corner. Now, if Rumpke's got to come in the far side there to get in the far right-hand corner to get to commercial trash, all the way to the back side of the parking lot, what's preventing them from accessing the driveway from the other side?
This driveway?
Now, if you came back with the proposed design, I'm probably talking out of turn here in the commission meeting, but if you came back with the proposal of making the 3 turns to get into the garage kind of from the back.
So you roll the dumpster out at Woodland level, and the truck comes down a hill to get it. I'm not following.
You were talking about Rumpke's truck, they make the turn.
Rumpke comes here, then he backs into here and gets the stuff, then leaves.
Right. You were saying you couldn't make the turn, the 3-point turn coming in off Woodland Place.
It would be a curved ramp.
Okay, then what's preventing you from making, I guess, maybe trash access and passenger access? Okay.
So it's 10 feet. So once you go down the street, the elevation changes. This is a hillside, but again, the garage has to be fixed in this footprint. And we eliminated using the city easement for a road, because that was an idea early on that the retail guy had. Why can't we have the circulation, use the easement, come out here and exit? And I said that wouldn't be acceptable in the neighborhood, and let's just limit the residential parking to the neighborhood and not the commercial. So this will be up at a higher level. You can't get down there. In fact, the neighborhood doesn't want to have any paths here because they don't want people parking on the street and cutting up here to get to the source. So maybe a residential permit only would be good for the street, and making sure we design the landscaping so it's not easy to have a path through it would be something we could come back with in the stage 2.
Looking at this site plan, it doesn't look like there's actually a ground level access to the rear of the smaller commercial building on the north. Is there going to be access to the commercial lot from that secondary building? From the
Yes,
back?
yes, so the restaurant hasn't been designed, but it could have an entrance through the garden right here, because the kitchen might be back here.
Right.
It could have a front entrance, but it'll have no entrance along the entry drive. This is
Right.
something that will just be for cars. There'll be a sidewalk, but all the activity will be coming in here. But again, it's a concept.
Okay.
Until we have a restaurateur, we're not gonna design it.
Right, the divisible commercial space shows access to the back, that's why I was just curious if there was that flexibility, if there had, in the early morning hours, if there was a
Oh, yeah.
commercial delivery from the back side, you could actually access the ground space from that side.
We'll work that out with the person who wants to do this.
All right.
But again, we got a porous way to get into this commercial space too. There could be an entrance to this commercial space from the garden. There's room to get into these spaces from the rear. There's room to get into the space from the Galleria. So this has become a more porous way to do small retail as well as larger retail.
I just want to make sure there was that flexibility.
Right now, the parking lot in back is flat. If that had even a 5% grade on it, you could probably access over that 200 feet, that gets you down 10 feet at the other end. You could probably access the basement garage from the parking lot instead of Woodland Place. Did you look at anything like that?
Yes, we did. And the ramp was too steep and it took up 1/3 of the parking.
I'm talking about the whole parking lot, not a ramp, just slope the whole parking lot. That 5% over 200 feet, that would get you down 10 feet. and you'd be at the basement level where you could access the garage from, I'm not talking about the ramp, I'm talking about sloping the whole parking lot.
Yeah. So this side would be handicap accessible, and this side would not.
I'm trying to find some way of getting your access off of Woodland Place.
Yeah, I don't know how many feet that would be to get into these stores. It'd be several steps. And I don't know about ADA requirements for commercial space or not. I guess if we made this all handicap parking, I don't know anything about that answer, Jerry, right off the top of my head. But how many feet difference? Is this 10? This 10 feet between here and there?
We're more than that. We're at least. But
That's how many.
definitely, when you all walk the entire hill, the market into it, still clusters, then all together, like, it's like that.
I didn't bring the illustration that showed the ramp. We looked at a ramp coming out here, and it went up to about here. And it took, a lot of the parking away from the commercial.
I understand the ramp won't work, but a slope parking lot, I think even a 5% would get you down 10 feet. And if the access road next to the building had a slope to it too, I think you could get down to the garage level.
We're starting from, I think, 865 at the end of the driveway here. So we're not doing 10 feet, we're doing 13 feet. I think that 5% ramp is something that we looked at. The parkable ramp is 5%. It would totally decimate that hillside. It would basically carve it out. I think there would be a large retaining wall, and it would be inaccessible, like Rick's saying. It's like, that just would kind of change the character of that site quite a bit. But I don't think that it fits even with the 13-foot distance that you have to mitigate.
If you can address, with the original proposed building, that was one continuous building throughout the site, did that have the garage under the whole building?
Yes, we had 24 units. We had enough space to do 60 spaces.
Is it feasible to put the garage in under the entirety of where it was originally, that would go all the way to the end of the commercial building? You'd have the garage under that whole area, including the 30-foot separation between the buildings. So you pick up the additional spaces under there that you might lose through any ramp or anything in the rear.
Yeah, if you want all those cars, 60 cars dumping out into the street, that's the capacity of this garage. When we had it, one continuous building was 60 cars. And so that's when we bifurcated this project and went down to 18 units, which is the minimum number of units we can build to make this economically feasible. You're putting in 2 stairwells that are fire rated, an elevator. All those costs don't pencil out when you have less than 18 units. So that's why we made the building at the size we did. We made it the smallest we could do and still make the numbers work, and got rid of the big garage so we could again address the issues of people on Woodland not having commercial and residential space that would don't bump out into the neighborhood.
Okay, but if you added additional spaces under that garage, then you could eliminate the entrance to Woodland and go into the rear. You said you'd lose your spaces in that rear parking lot with the ramp.
Where we put the ramp. So we're up at grade now, and I'm trying to, so this is all garage. Where does the ramp go to get up to this elevation from this whole space? So it's gonna take up space somewhere. The ramp has to come out of the garage on the side, and we did a study of one of those ramps.
Right, no, I understand that, but I guess what I'm hearing though, that you could pick up an additional 20 spaces underneath, and I understand and appreciate that it may not be economically feasible. I'm just looking at the, whether it can be done. as a practical matter and still get the required parking, because right now,
Yeah.
we're still under the parking limit. If we're looking at a waiver of the parking that's required, even as it exists right now.
Yeah, I would just say that as a practical matter, the economics kind of are practical, and we would immensely increase the construction cost here if we start going under the proposed commercial building with a parking garage and also build a deck or park on a deck. Those are costly. Also, the retaining wall that we're proposing here is probably gonna throw our pro forma out of the ballpark. So I'd just like to kind of mention that as one reality.
We don't do charge the spaces too. I mean, this commercial tenant's not gonna pay for 22,000 a space parking. And that's what it costs. So who pays for this extra addition? I can get it back from the prices I'll charge for the condos, but the rents that we'll be trying to push in these commercial spaces can never cover parking too. That's why the surface has been suggested.
And this may be a question for Ron or Kevin, but there's a city easement, I believe, behind the rear of the commercial lot. Is that going to be vacated, or what is the status of that easement, or what is it actually?
This piece, right?
Right. Yeah, I know where it is. I guess what is the disposition of that?
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so the easement back there, it's a unused paper street that we really have no interest in using, or I don't think we have any intention of vacating it, but if it was asked, we would probably consider that because we really have no interest or use for it.
And I know it hasn't been completely analyzed at this point. I believe this was discussed at the prior hearing, but I'm assuming that the plan is to have subsurface stormwater detention under the commercial lot, and that'll be analyzed moving forward, assuming that the development moves forward.
Yeah, that's required by law, and we contacted all the utilities, and the site has plenty of capacity. We just didn't do a detailed plan, but the IBI, who's our engineer, contacted all utilities. There's plenty of utilities in the neighborhood, and in phase 2, you'll get the detailed utility plan and the storm detention plan.
Yeah, I was just curious, you know, given the condition of the site, I'm not sure how it drains now. I wasn't sure how that, even if you did have a subsurface vault, what it would drain to, I guess, is what I was curious about.
They'll figure that out so it doesn't impact the neighborhood and go into either, I guess, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. That's part of the requirements, and you'll have to approve that in phase 2. But we have these detention tanks in all our projects.
Right.
And they're crammed in between the sidewalk and the front of these buildings, so there's plenty of space to do this, which we didn't have before.
In the sewer zone, Highland, or surrounding perimeter property, those are separated at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
The nice thing about having this area back here, we can stage all the construction back here versus on the street. So it'll give us a lot of control over the truck traffic coming off of Fort Thomas Avenue and not Woodland.
I think shared parking across the street is a viable option. Ron, you said you're looking into that, and I think we should encourage people to use that area in some ways. I wouldn't want the look of a parking garage behind viable thing, even if you can afford it, because it's like, how do you get people to use it?
I guess I had a question related to that, Ron, for a valet operation, do we have a valet operation in the city now? Or are there any regulatory control that we have over that?
We could certainly regulate any use of public space. So if there was a proposal to do any type of valet parking at any one of our businesses, we would be in the process through act of council and an ordinance, would have to put restrictions, and I think there were other references earlier about parking restrictions. Those would all be done through an ordinance with council. So for example, if there was a loading, unloading, similar to what we have on Miller Lane, that serves the town center in the area between Lumley and Miller, there's an on-street loading and unloading designation. And then oftentimes there's a loading, unloading with particular parking restrictions. Similarly, if you had a valet parking arrangement, you would post the hours that would occur that would limit parking otherwise. And that's not uncommon throughout any of our business district areas. So we have some parking restrictions, 1 hour, even 15-minute parking restrictions in certain locations. And sometimes those were at the request of the actual business owner. So for example, at the coffee shop, I think there's 2 15-minute parking restriction areas within particular hours of the day. So again, those are all enacted through an ordinance.
Anybody else with questions? I think we understand it pretty well. I think it's to the point I'd entertain a motion either to approve it or to deny it. I don't think there's anything that, unless the developer's heard anything and he'd say, hey, I want to go back for round 3. I don't think I've heard that. So I think it's our charge to approve or deny. So I entertain a motion one way or the other and the appropriate conditions or considerations to go with it.
Usually the guy makes a motion. I really think we need to go back to the drawing board one more time, so I'm not gonna make a motion. Unless you want to table it, I would make a motion to table it and meet with the developer and see if we can work out some kind of way we can access the parking garage without going on to Woodland Place or some other alternatives. I still think it's too big a project for that piece of land.
How would you make it smaller?
Well, I don't really want to deny it, though. I think it could be a viable project if we just solve some of these problems that are still hanging out there. I'm not comfortable with it right now. So, and I don't want to send the developer away. I think we just need to look at some other way of accessing the garage other than Woodland Place. We don't have enough parking by zoning right now, and I'm not comfortable with us approving it with less than the required number of zoning, of parking spaces, even though I guess we have that ability. I don't think that's a good thing to do. So I'll make a motion to table it if the developer would like to meet with us one more time and look at some options on accessing the garage and on somehow increasing the parking or decreasing the size of the project so that our parking works per the zoning ordinance.
Jerry, the problem with your zoning is you require us to do commercial on the first floor. I mean, that's pretty much what you require. And if you want to change your zoning and just do commercial here, that'd be great. If you want to do mixed use, then we have to figure out how to do an 18-unit building, and the footprint of that one it's been shown. So if you just want to do that and leave the rest of the land vacant, BB&T could have a drive-through pharmacy, and then the project would be the right size? I don't know. So you have this difficult situation where you have published your zoning, you lay out the requirements, you publish your comprehensive plan, and lay out your vision, and there's no way you can address some of the issues that you're asking tonight. And so making it smaller is fine, but you go back to a mishmash of buildings. So we would, like I say, sell BB&T to the pharmacy or to a bank, and then you'd have a smaller project. As far as the study of the garage, I mean, if I could think of one more solution, I would. We've gone through 7 different solutions, and every time we get another idea, it gets more and more expensive. So, again, talked about how many people really come in and out of these garages, and I've seen it when all the 5 phases we done in Marymount and Hyde Park, and there's just not a lot of traffic coming in these buildings. It's, like I say, we project, and so does the traffic engineers that use their handbooks, that the trips per day would be around 21 or 22 round trips. So, tough decision, but I come out of ideas on parking garages.
Just a point of clarification, assuming that the project would move forward, this would be consolidated into one parcel.
That's correct, and then each condo owner would have its own individual parcel after the consolidation concern occurred. And then the owner of the first floor commercial would have ownership of those spaces.
So the smaller commercial building would be tied with the larger commercial and residential building. They would be the same parcel.
Same parcel, but individual owners would have their individual ownership of their units after the mother parcel was consolidated.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve the submitted stage 1 development plan with the following conditions. Finding of facts that the plan as currently submitted is in general compliance with the the city's CBD code, zoning code, except for the following conditions. That the waiver for the off-street parking, that the submitted number of off-street parking spaces be approved with the intent to work with the city administration to secure additional off-site spaces for any valet operations, as well as to have specifically designated loading zones from the street side public parking as required. And then secondly, that the lighting be subject to a photometric analysis according to the Cincinnati, I keep saying Cincinnati City development standards to ensure that there's no glare into the adjoining properties. And that the screening area in the rear of the lot be reduced from the required 50 feet to 25 feet, contingent upon approval from the City Design Review Board and the City Tree Commission for the screening as currently proposed, and that a more detailed landscaping plan be submitted with the Stage 2 plan submittal, as well as an analysis of the stormwater detention and any other requirements that are required by the Stage 2 development plan process. That's the end of my motion.
Okay, to regularly moved. Do we have a second? We moved in second. Any further discussion before we vote? Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
If I may, just further acknowledgement, in looking at your considerations, I want to make sure we hit all the acknowledgements. There wasn't anything noted in the motion as it relates to the off-street loading and unloading. Maybe if you could be more specific on that item. And then also, notes 3, 4, and 5, if you would speak, actually 3 through 6, if you would mind speaking to those on the considerations.
So I would like to amend the motion to specifically note that there's a waiver of the 3 required off-street commercial loading zone, or loading spaces to 1. Again, with the encouragement of working with the city administration to designate a street side public loading zone on Fort Thomas Avenue. And also to acknowledge that the traffic impact study conducted by TEC and reviewed by CT Consultants does not show that there will be a significant traffic impact associated with the development, and that the traffic impact study was conducted in accordance with city procedures. And just acknowledge that there is a modification that all the access points are 24 feet minimum, that has been met by the proposed development plan. And also to note that one of the reasons for the access from Woodland Place it is considered to be a safer location for the commercial trash loading, or I'm sorry, the residential trash collection versus access point that was previously considered on Highland Avenue due to the topographic nature of the street and the grades on Highland Avenue in relationship to the proposed development.
I'll second the amended motion.
And the motion's been seconded, the amendment. Start down there, I guess. So we'll poll the people here first. Aye from the chair. Motion passed. We thank you for your attendance. We'll give a motion to close the meeting. If they're moving second, we close the meeting. All in favor? Aye. So ordered.